Hey, Jimmy.
Mitch, what's up, new papa?
Not much. I guess I shouldn't say not much. It's been a crazy couple months, but
You
it's
getting
been good.
sleep? Hope you're getting
Um,
sleep.
Almost. I mean, I'm getting a lot more sleep than my wife. I will say that. He is Rudy, so he's turning 2 months in a few days. He's really not a good sleeper at all. So, um,
Nice.
it's been it's been fun. But how have you been?
Oh, it's been good, buddy. Just busy.
Yeah.
It's all over with kids and life. I mean, last Saturday when I was working all day, our new house we got in October had like a supply line to the master bath sink, and
Mm.
so our whole house like flooded. So it's been
Oh,
like a crazy week of like everything's going good, still grateful, and it's at least something I can use in my job for 30 years, So just it's been a focus of like half glass full stuff. It's all good though,
yeah.
You know how it is.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, that's
So,
good. Well, it's good to catch up again. So I got the pleasure of
yeah,
meeting you
man.
just a few months ago. It was the day before. That was the day before my wife went into labor with our sons.
Yeah, I
That
know. That
happened
was
right
crazy.
after.
They were like, were they interested? I was like, well, they just had a baby. It was like the next day. And so I was like, oh man, you guys got a lot of life going on.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's cool.
let's.
That's your
Why don't we
second
just
kid?
second kid? Yeah.
Gotcha.
So Henley, our
Gotcha.
daughter, she's gonna be 2 in July. So 2 under 2, going good. We're figuring it out as we go. So,
Nice.
uh,
Oh, look at that. Okay. Sorry. Just messing with some
nice.
stuff here on the deal. So yeah, man, thanks for having me on. This is kind of a cool thing. So
Yeah, of
you got the
course.
you got the setup right.
Yeah, thanks for being on. I do appreciate you taking the time. I think it'd be fun. Like, why don't we just start with you, kind of just introducing yourself a little bit about you.
Yeah. So Jimmy Reed. So I was, born and raised here, technically Omaha for like 4 or 6 months, but claim Grand Island family's been here for a long time and ended up just staying around town for the most part, right in Nebraska. I've never really ventured too far away from home. I've had a lot of fun experiences, but yeah, so you fast forward and you, you go to school, had a kid young, and was just allowed to kind of start growing and developing in the town and doing all that fun stuff. And now you try to give back to the community, and your kids are in schools, and it's funny because how old are you again, Mitch?
I'm 26.
It's funny, like that's 9 years ago for me, which almost feels like a lifetime. Um, and so it's weird when you're around people you've known your whole life, and you're trying to become a better man, businessman, family man, whatever it is. So it's just, yeah, just a local guy who cares about the town and is thankful to live here.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So,
So you grew up here in Grand Islands. Like, what
yep.
was it about? Like, what made you want to stay then? Like, so obviously, there's always options out there. Like, why have you stayed here?
It's a good question. And it's hard, Mitch. My mind goes in a lot of different places, just kind of naturally who I am. But so when I was 12, I was diagnosed as a type 1 diabetic. And so just with my grandparents helping me with some of that stuff too, and other family. I think because of that, I just always was fond of being close to home from being a young age and just having to deal with some quirky things here or there. And so I don't know if that was a part of it, because then you just go through your middle school, high school careers, and always have had lots of, good friends. And I would have to say too, my grandfather and my father, just being a part of the community and business community, it's different when you know just people your age, but when you know people in all sorts of demographics and yeah, just it kind of sat with home with me. I don't know if I ever really needed or wanted, to be away from here. Some of I think all three of my younger siblings, one's in New York, one was in Chicago, and the other one's in Omaha. And, I was just the one that kind of wanted to stay local, I guess, man.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Yeah, well, I grew up here too, and so I totally like kind of resonate with that. Just like for us, it was moving back after school, wanting to be closer to home, closer to parents and stuff like that, and
mhm.
it actually coming back made me realize like how thankful I am for growing up in a community like this. Like there are just so many good people and things to be thankful for. I feel like here,
Yeah.
um, but tell me about so I met you. it was 2 months ago touring a house. So tell me about
Mhm.
like your professional career and how you started in that.
So when I went to Kearney for about 3.5 years, and then I went to Lincoln. And that semester up in Lincoln gave me a great blessing that I needed at that time of my life, and that was my youngest daughter, Kaylee, who's about to be 13, believe it or not, here in about a month. And so she was probably, excuse me, I should have said this earlier, a main driving force of just around family, around help, when you're that age and maturity. And I would venture, Mitch, that you were probably a little more disciplined than I was at that time in my life. So just being around people to help, being around family. And like I said, I spent a lot of time with my grandparents, and my mom and dad, and that's kind of what happened with her too. So she drove me back here, and kind of went back to Kearney for another semester, but I started working essentially for Love Signs here in town. That was Sheila, who is essentially, that's my father's current wife, been together for 25 years. It was her brother's company at the time, and started just kind of doing some sales stuff there. And then the Olive Garden was opening up, and just being a young guy with a mouth to feed and not being sure, where that money was going to come from. So started working at the Olive Garden and helped open that restaurant here in town, which is really great. And then became one of their, I would say, front of house managers in due time. And then a gentleman by the name of Brian Faust, um, who I knew through my father a little bit and just had seen him around, depending on the scene. But he still the CEO at Bosman's, I believe. Um, but he kind of saw me, and they were getting ready to open, some more quick service restaurant, those Cinnabons at the time. So I was a part of the team when Cinnabon started going to the gas station. I would train that and learned all about the brand. And so I was worked with Bosselman's for 4 years. And a shout out to that family, and especially Brian Faust, at a time in my life where it was just a really good opportunity for me. They really did good by me. So I'm always eternally thankful to that organization and the people there. And um, real estate, obviously, with my parents, grandparents always been involved in the business, was something that was always in the back of my mind a little bit. I probably knew I'd always become that, which at the time, I don't know, gave me a lot of drive or direction for certain things in college. Um, and my father had always told me, probably one of the best life lessons he's given me out of the 10 biggest ones is, you should work somewhere for 4 years in a structured environment before you get into the real estate business. And that's not why I went to Bosselman. I'd always thought about it, but I didn't have the drive for it yet. And, it eventually just came down to wanted to maybe just do a little bit more, maybe get more involved in communities and stuff and financially and just trying to set up my family for, a better future. And so kind of took the leap, which I shouldn't use leap. That's poor verbiage when you have family who've done well in that business here. But so I decided to join the family business in about 2016. I think I got licensed in the summer of 15. So I think I'm right about at 10 years of being licensed. And so, uh, yeah, after a good 4 years of Bosman's, kind of got into, I think, a more natural fit at that time of my life with just the sales profession. And we kind of have worked hard, and now we're here today. And that's kind of that initial journey to how I got into the business. So,
Yeah, very cool. So like, I'm curious about like those early days too. So like, clearly you have like a good work ethic. Like you're just like driven. You could just that comes through the screen. Even I met you in person too. But like, what
yeah.
like, what were some of the lessons you learned in just like figuring out that early part of your life and just like talking about like that that version of you and other people who might be like in that scenario now where they're young, they're hungry, they're like, what would be your biggest
Yeah.
piece of advice or takeaway just from your that period of time for you?
There's two things I think that kind of come to mind quickly is um, I grew up in, a good environment, right? My grandfather came from nothing, and he, did good for himself. So it's weird when you get to that age and you're forced to, you know, get after it a little bit. And so the first thing is to kids around that 21-year-old range. and then your age, Mitch, 26. It's like, hey, you have to work. If you want to get anywhere in life, um, you have to do extra things. And the one thing is, though, is whether it's staying, these are things my father always told me too. It's like, hey, get there an hour early, for the office job. If you're showing up there at 6:30 or 7 o'clock, it makes a statement. And I didn't do that every time. I don't want to act like I'm this perfect guy, right? But putting in the extra hours, putting in the extra effort, and just really understanding that I think, older generations before myself and you, they're used to that. They were used to working just all the time. And I think people around our age groups and lower, it's a different world. There's more distractions, it's generations want different things, but whether it is financially or to just have a general impact, you have to put in the hours. And the nice thing is it's when you get older, you realize that, you know, I'm not going to say there's not a lot of people that do that. I mean, I think anybody in a successful position or managerial position, would understand that. And so that's one of the things. And then the other one is help, is help. So as I sit here as a father of three, and all the things, if you're fortunate, whether it's from family or friendships or a coach or a teacher, there are so many people, good people in our community, that if you can kind of combine, hey, I'm going to need the help with my kid, if you could watch him because I have to work, doing it for the right reasons. I did those for the wrong reasons too. And it's just one of those deals where helping people makes an impact. And the older I've gotten, the more I instead of just realizing that and knowing it, I've tried to focus on that a little bit more to just be a little more selfless, as we all age and mature. And it's, you never know the difference you can make in somebody's life, whether it's for, a day or, maybe you're helping Rudy out sometime down the road. And it's just family's important. That traditional family of, uh, care, support, encouragement, growth, all that. Those are the two things that come to mind. You got to work and don't be afraid to ask for help. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
So,
What's been like the biggest surprise getting into real estate? So like transitioning that part of your career, um, what's been like the biggest surprise to you? I'm curious if you have
mm.
any like stories too of just like learning curves and things like that.
Oh man, by the way, Mitch, I talk a lot. If you need to steer me back, feel free to do so
No,
because I could go in so many directions with this.
yeah, go for it.
I would say the first thing is growing up around this business since I was, I can remember. You always hear conversations at the table about, you know, the phrase over here is like sometimes we are people's, you don't want to say psychiatrists, but people talk to us a lot. Those things like you hear that all the time, you hear it all the time, and just what I think surprised me is it's a beautiful opportunity when most people work outside of the home environment, right? So you're in buildings, you're not in your comfort space, and when you're working with people and you're in their home and they're entrusting it to you or you're helping somebody buy one, a lot of the times the way at least happens for me is those conversations get a little more intimate, um, caring, frustrating. I mean, so we deal with the dynamic emotion of just people because we all go through life, good and bad. I mean, case in point with my thing last weekend, it's, you know, I'm glad that happened to me because I feel like I could digest it easier just seeing what we see. And when you just deal with people, there's a different story for every client, and a different story for every asset that, we have to represent. It's not a very linear business in that regards. And so just how close you get with people when you're around their kids at the house and you share the memories, or it's their first house and you're ready to make memories, that stuff, at a younger age, I don't know if I was thinking about that. And so that's something that surprised me. I think for myself, it's weird when you grow up around a bunch of people you end up working with. And that's good and bad, right? And the funny thing about that is I think a lot of people have these predetermined expectations, right? So whether that is people working with me where I'm still maturing and getting better at routines and discipline and because back when I first started, it was a financial chase for me. Now I loved and cared about everybody I worked for. But I cared about only the client. And that's what we're supposed to do. Um, and it was also kind of in some years where real estate was just kind of busy and all over the place. And through those times when, you get people when you're a young kid and then you're college years right around there and they said, oh, you could do good in this business, good in this business. And then, I think it's difficult when you've known somebody since they were 12 and then you start having not necessarily like conflict, but you have deals going against each other. And sometimes familiarity is a huge learning curve, especially if it's still new, right? So, meaning, I guarantee you the guy I am today is a lot more stout at some things than the guy was even at 30. I mean, we're talking 5 years of change. When you get to your 30s, mid 30s, you really start, number one, getting old man, Mitch, like I mow my yard twice a week. I start caring about all that stuff. I didn't too much of back in the day. But that also just comes with a better understanding of the value that you should bring to people around you, whether it's clients or just coworkers, peers, and all that stuff. And so I think it was just a learning curve for a lot of, I don't know, like all agents, but even for my parents, like in the business, it's you're trying to come up and you go through growth periods in life, and sometimes that brings some conflict. And I think the immature side of me would be like, oh man, I grew up with you people, maybe have a talk with me or help me in a different way, which I'm sure a lot of them did, right? I can't remember every interaction. And then you get the guy I am now, and it's like, oh yeah, there's times that you just always have to look in the mirror, right? You should look in the mirror every day. And I think we're so quick to, as people, finger point instead of saying, man, what could I have done to made it better? Was it a smile? Was it putting a smiley face on a text so it didn't sound like I was being mean about it or smart? All those little micro transactions that showcase, how you feel. You gotta show what's in your heart. Um, and so I don't know if that was necessarily a surprise for me. I think it's just on my mind because that's just, I'm in that first period in my life where you look back 10 years and you can just say, yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I can see other people's points. Um, so just that's kind of like the inner office dynamic. I will tell you, the funnest surprise I've had is, um, you know, you grow up around this table for so many years, and when you're trying to do business, you'll have other people who are trying to do the same business well. And so Tim Plate, who is a guy who sold real estate here for 45 years, you know Tim is one smart son of a gun. That guy knew what he was doing. And we all have our positives and the things we can work on, but Tim Plate, it was a surprise to me how um like that's one where those growth moments come at the right place, where this guy who's been just selling, selling, selling for years and developing, and a big part of Grand Island, he was kind of starting to want to enjoy life as he should have been for working that long, and so he was always kind of there for me too in ways of just different views on the business that were stuff I didn't grow up on or grow up in. And so to add to, my father, I listen to him constantly, and I got to give him all the credit for helping me get here. I mean, my dad has been, I mean, I know he's my father, but the best broker I think Grand Island's ever had. And uh, just all these years and how he would go about the business. I mean, that's what got me there. But Tim kind of gave me the appreciation. They would go at it back in the day. Yeah, so my grandfather and my dad in the business, and Tim, and I don't know if they got around Rudy too much, if Jim did, but so seeing like not adversaries, but obviously competitors, the surprise of getting some wisdom from these people who I've heard about my whole life was probably one of the sweetest surprises. Just um, that kind of stems off from other developers, other people here in town. That's probably been my biggest blessing is just familiarity with those names in general, because it's scary when you're young to talk to, really good business people, right? I mean, I don't know if you've had that yet. I mean, you're from here, so maybe you've got some familiarity too, but um, yeah, the sweetest surprise is just people like that and other figures in the community, whether they were, competitors of my family or on the same team, just really given their knowledge and given their time. So that was probably the best surprise.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I think too that highlights an important point that usually like these kind of people are always willing to like mentor or give advice to some degree too, even though it like maybe from like our perspective it's like, oh my gosh, like they wouldn't have time to like talk to me or like, you know what I mean? Like, but it's like a pleasant
yeah.
surprise. I found that too. And sometimes, and really you just have to put yourself out there. They're not going to like be able to seek you out, find you. They don't know who you are. But if you're like seeing these people that you're like, I would love to learn from him, like just reach out. Like I found that to be a super helpful tool. And just like it is like getting over that hump of like, maybe negative self talks, like doubt and things about that. But like those people, like they want to help and like they want to pass down their knowledge. I feel like.
Dude, all day. And that kind of, my beautiful, we're going to call it ADD complex mind up here was, thinking about that question earlier. Um, you know, that's what I found too, Mitch. It's weird how any set of fear inside is just a liar. My wife always says that fear is a liar. And those cats who've done some good things, they want to teach people. And that's kind of, you tie that back to, you got to work. Um, what is work, right? Is it, you know, doing something with your hands for 12 hours a day? Absolutely. Is it going out and, like you said, kind of taking a leap of faith and putting yourself out there to ask people for advice? People who've worked hard a long time, I think, find value in sharing that. I mean, that's already happened to me, I think, in 10 years. And I couldn't imagine what it'll be like in the next 20 or 30, Lord willing, if, people ever want to do that with me. And so it's you're right on the money with that. People want to share knowledge when they respect the ethic, and that's something I wish I could have learned a lot earlier in life. So I think that's another one, kind of to focus back to even your first question is, yeah, you nailed that on the head right there.
Yeah. I'm curious, kind of pivoting a little bit to just like practical advice that you're giving out right now. What are you
Yeah.
telling like first time home buyers right now in 2025? And what would be your advice, especially in like the Grand Island area?
Uh, have faith and don't feel too discouraged, right? It's harder to get in. The rates right now, sit at about 6.5 to 7, depending on, the kind of the day right now. And then just the cost of real estate's gone up a lot. Taxes have gone up a lot. Insurance this last 6 months has changed a lot. It started probably a couple years ago. And so, it's a little more planning for people, I think, than it used to be, right? Let alone finding a house that fits you for the price and range. And so first time home buyers, just get the plan together. Just get the plan together. It doesn't matter, you know, you don't have to buy today, right? This should be something to where, you gotta probably make some sacrifices in some areas. So just try to be the most intelligent with your finances as possible. Uh, but from a point of encouragement, there's Grand Island traditionally, I don't even know if I can say that word. We got to be careful what words we can use. You know what I mean? But all I can remember is since the 90s, appreciation, right? I think the one time maybe it didn't here was 85, maybe some early 1992 stuff that I'm not familiar with. But it's been a great place for people to own homes. The one thing that is nice about Grand Island, Nebraska, number one, Nebraska in general, all we have is our land, right? So yeah, we get taxed on it. There's those things we have to deal with. However, because everybody knows land is our biggest asset here, generally that's a little safer home ownership as long as you're, not getting a lemon or you're not, forcing something on a house that probably shouldn't do. But, homes have generally done really well here for people, especially if you're here for a long time. And so, um, it's still good to create asset wealth, right? To get in that first time home buyer range. Renting's good. that can have some maybe benefits depending on what you do. But it's fun that you can start a place with your family, probably the things you're looking to do. And then you also know that's one of the largest investments you'll make. And so the fact that we're in a market, you know, the big money real estate, you talk about these Arizonas or the Boulder, Colorados, if there are things going on economically, those go up and down, right? And Grand Island, whatever we do, we're always just kind of in this middle. Like you can make a good living, a client can have, a safe asset, and traditionally throughout the past we've just kind of continued to appreciate. um, so just telling people it's worth it even though it seems like it's just tougher right now is probably not the best description to tell people, but it's still a good thing and it's good for your family. It's good to start that stuff. So
Yeah. No, 100%. I would agree. I mean, just like we kind of dipped our toe in and let's just check some things out and like the same, we feel like the same sentiment, but it is just that idea of like, yes, more planning is involved, more patience, more like searching, but like I feel like it's worth it, like making that happen, especially if you're trying to raise a family here, like just kind of
yeah.
putting yourself down, like putting your roots down somewhere and being able to grow in a home together. Like, so that's, I mean, that's, I asked that kind of selfishly because that's where we're at, like looking
That's
to buy
perfect.
a home for the first time. So
Yeah, man, and it's just, and like you said, you just had a baby, and it's like you have to take care of that first. Like you always got to take care of your family first, right? And it's just set it as a goal. I would say probably the best thing you could do, excuse me, is just a plan, right? I mean, everybody preaches budgets and things when you're trying to be super responsible. Like I said, I don't want to take credit like I did that young. Like I'm not here to be a phony, but old man status kind of coming up. It's like that stuff gets you ahead. And if it takes you 2 years, whether it's, clearing up your credit card debt or, you know, I think the biggest thing for first home buyers too is like, hey, don't find too much value in the car, right? It ruins your loan to debt ratio a little bit. It's like those expenses aren't important in the scheme of life, but real estate is so important. Like you said, the family side, the financial side. So I think every young couple like yourself always needs to take a look at that and say, what do we need to do to get here? That should get a lender. You talk about going out on the limb. It's always kind of hard when you're like, oh, I got to go talk to these people. What if they tell me that I can't do it on the file? And it's like, that's the best thing. They're going to guide you on exactly what you could do to get in here. Then, if you get in them with them early enough, whether the rates start going and they keep track of you or they have some incentives for first time home buyers, that's why you want to get to those banks right away. Because you use that, they know you're looking, they might have some funds available for you, but then it just allows them to show you, hey, this is where you need to be. And if it's not today, that's okay. Like that's a good thing. If it's 2 years, 5 years, whatever, but it's something everybody should work for. So,
yeah, well, that's a good piece of advice. So you're saying like even if you're like not like you're looking for a home, you want to buy a home eventually, even if it's not like in the next
yeah,
6 months. You're saying go to a lender, establish that relationship, and it's going to be easier down the road.
absolutely. It creates the path, right? And when you're young, we're learning these things, right? I remember learning these things in the same time I was almost, in the business. And so yeah, it's amazing what you can pick up from people, whether it's a financial advisor, you know, um, a lender at a bank, anyone in that type of field in regards to business. It just clears up so you know exactly what you need to do. And I will tell you, people do like to get a lot of their information online, right? Which is a great thing. And maybe there are cities and places where that just makes it easier because you don't have to drive like an hour away in traffic or all that stuff, right? But like around here, getting around those local banks, and you have to preach those local banks. I mean, I'm talking the Pinnacle, the Five Points, Home Federal, Exchange, Equitable, like anybody who is here local. Generally they all have some pretty good lenders who know exactly what they're doing. It's like, just go talk to them, set up a meeting and say, hey, we're trying to buy a house. We don't know where we're at. And all they're going to say is, oh, that's great. Let's set a meeting and they'll just run it for you. They'll give you what you need to know. There's so many different options available. So, yeah, that's probably something I need to
Yeah,
start telling my people too a little more harder. So,
yeah. No, that's good advice. I appreciate that. since you are in Grand Island, I'm curious what's like some of your favorite hotspots. Where let's go like favorite restaurant or a couple, and then just favorite things to do in Grand Island.
Oh man, you're putting me on the spot here. I got to be careful. I favorite favorite places that I like to go. I think you have to throw in the Balls and Whitey's. I mean, that's like a great sports bar. The food's always good. They've got just a great staff. I think those are some Grand Island classics right there that um, for a quick casual lunch, I mean, by all means. Um, Dinner is tougher for me. I'm trying to think, the Saddle Club has always had, just really good food. I would have to say I've liked the Saddle Club. I know that's a little different because it's kind of like a small membership thing. Um, I used to, like the Sin Cities and the Wave Pizzas. Those were kind of some things, but I think those have had some transition periods. So that's where I'm kind of going back because all that down there. You could throw in the chicken coop. And definitely Tommy's. Like I'm a big Tommy's breakfast guy. Like I could eat breakfast all day. So those are just kind of some ones that, come off the top of my head here, but I'm sure I'm forgetting it. And then things to do here. I tell you what, this is kind of new, but that new B&B theaters here in Grand Island, the place is cool, man. Have you been in there yet?
Not yet. We need to go. It looks so fun.
You've been dealing with real life. I forgot about that. I'm on the 13-year-old kid train. So yeah, went into there and it's like, man, you don't even feel like you're in Grand Island in this place. They got the big screens, the bowling alley, and all that stuff. So the B&B Theater, that's like a great little family spot. Island Oasis back in the day. Obviously, the kids still love that now. Um, hmm. Help me out, Mitch. What are some other spots here? Because I think about all these things constantly all day. Give me some
Yeah.
back and forth on some options to spark my memory. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you hit a lot of good ones there. And to be honest, Chicken Coop is probably like one of our favorite places to go,
Coop.
just because we're close.
Yeah,
Yeah, going downtown is
Coop is
good.
good.
We don't get out as much lately, but that's one of our go-tos.
Oh, okay. So there you go. You helped me. Like, I'm a big Kiko's fan. Like,
Oh yeah, Kiko's.
Franco did great. Frank did great with Kiko's. It's got a great vibe. So I love Kiko's right now. And El Tapatio is always a good restaurant. Like the environment in there is just really, really neat. So, yeah, that's probably my favorite place. I like that spot a lot.
Nice. Okay.
Downtown's haven't they done a good job with downtown? Remember that when we were younger,
Yes.
man?
Yeah.
I mean, all those people involved in that, they've really done a good job down there. It's kind
A
of fun to
hundred
see.
percent. Oh yeah, I totally agree. That was the
Yeah.
biggest thing. Like leaving after high school and coming back, like coming to visit and then moving back. Like it's night and day. Like it's just so different. Like I would agree. Like there's so much to do now and so much to stick around for in the summers. I know like the Here GI concert series. That was one of my that was exciting
Yeah.
for us when we came. I was like, this is like awesome. Like there's definitely a lot of work going into this. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, what do you want to leave us with? Advice, a story? What do you think?
Hmm. Man, I could talk to you for 3 hours, by the way. Let me see here. I would say Grand Island, I believe, is on just a really good trajectory for the next 10 years, especially. Everybody involved with the city, and I know you had Jensen on here, I think, a while ago. I think that started a lot of kind of what we're seeing today. And I think Roger's done a good job with growing a lot of this stuff. So I just think we have good leadership. I think the council, for the most part, has some people who have some new energy. And, we're all in this stage of like, hey, we want to see, Grand Island continue to prosper for people. And so we are just, fantastic community with people who do care, all those people out there with families and stuff who've been from here, I'm like telling them now, I don't know if anybody will see this on that edge of life, but it's like, hey, we're going to have some things, whether it's the Camp Augustine, takeover that they're going to help with, some outdoor things or just everything going down, Scout over there, how cool is that going to be, and it takes those people, those movers, the chief construction. I mean, shout out to DJ and his whole team. I mean, talk about some studs in that organization. So it's going to be a good place for families. We're going to get more of that offering. We're going to get more of the special, which I think Grand Island's needed for quite some time. Um, We have a lot of eyes on us. So it's going to be a fun, exciting 10, 20 years. I think everybody in town needs to, it's always hard to tell people to take, special notes of, our local political or local bills or local incentives for growth and just to monitor it because, it takes a community to do it the right way. And so pay attention to that stuff. I think it's really important right now. Um, I will tell you that if I am speaking to younger cats wanting to get in business, right? Um, Routine and faith are going to be the things to help you get that discipline, that obedience. You know, Christ is everything. I have to say that on whatever platform I am on. I'm not going to preach about it. He will shape you and mold you. Um, But then, you still have to take out the trash, right? I've done some other small talks with people where it's like faith over fear, but you still have to take out the trash, right? So you still have to work for your obedience. I will tell you that it's everybody has their own thing. Like I can't listen to audible books because I'm a visual learner. So know who you are, know your strengths, know your weaknesses, realize the environment you're putting yourself in because that will also shape. Realize the people you're putting yourself around because that will also help shape you. And it's weird for me, Mitch, when I was a younger kid, I just like to, have a good time and do a lot of stuff. And then you get to a place in your life and you have a family and you've made some mistakes or whatever else and discipline's good. I think it's hard to start but it starts feeding you and you start thirsting for it. So get a routine in the morning. I don't care if it's working out for 20 minutes and, reading a book or whatever, but have routines. Don't be afraid to ask people for help, business, personal. We live in a good community here. We are lucky. We are so lucky to live in Grand Island, Nebraska, and Nebraska in general. So those are probably the ending comments, unless you have
Yeah.
anything more specific or crazy to ask, man.
No, I
So,
appreciate that. Couldn't agree more with what you said. One other thing, where can people kind of find you, keep up with what you're doing? Are you on social media at all?
yeah, I'm on the social. It's just the Jimmy Reed on Facebook. There's Jimmy Real Estate IGs and Facebook accounts there, and I get trapped with being on the phone all the time talking. So there's strengths there. The videos are starting to play a little more part again, I think, in our real estate world. So getting out on that. But I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. It sounds weird to say this. Like this isn't supposed to come off weird, but hey, just Jimmy Reed, Grand Island, and my phone number should pop up just because of the business I'm in. And but just always available, especially to uh, you know, the 20, 26-year-olds like yourself, just to keep myself a little young, Mitch, because I'm telling you, old age, it comes fast at you, man. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing. But just to try to be hopefully a guy who can help where others might need you.
Yeah,
So,
100%. Well,
but
you've been helpful for my wife and I answering a lot of questions when we got to meet you. So I appreciate you taking the time. Really appreciate you being on this podcast too. It's good to catch up. So
pal, I haven't followed up with you too hard because I'm nervous with that kid. It's like I don't want to stress these guys out. So like I always tell people, please bug me all the time, just because you kind of get busy and you're all over the place. I'm not a square box guy, so I'm always out doing something. So
yeah,
yeah, bug me please, and
we'll do.
I'm sure we'll talk after this anyway, man.
Yeah,
So
let's do it. Okay,
okay,
cool.
hey, real quick, I know I'm not trying
Yeah.
to cut you off. Like, what's your schedule like when you do these things? You can clip this out, I know, but
Yeah, I do. So I'll schedule these pretty randomly, and then I try to get these out one episode every 2 weeks is my kind of what I'm aiming for right now. And I got a
yeah,
little bit behind this past month, but yeah. So I've got
good.
like 2 or 3 more interviews scheduled in the next like month, but it's kind of sporadic, really. It just depends on
Yeah,
the month or the week, but yeah. So every 2 weeks, and so I'll let you know like when it's up, like all the good stuff, like the social clips and all that too. But that's what I
yeah,
aim
man.
for. So yeah.
Well, you've got a great startup for it. I mean, I think it's a cool thing to kind of get something in GI going. So I
Yeah.
hope it goes well, and you'll get some other good people on here give better advice than I did too.
I
So
appreciate it. No, you gave great advice, and it really does mean a lot just taking the time to do this. And it's been fun. Like I've had this idea even before we moved back 2 years ago. I had this idea of like some kind of podcast or show to like just showcase what's going on around. And so it's kind of fun to finally see it like, in the last few months kind of come to fruition and just get the responses that I've been getting about it. Like people really appreciate it. So we'll keep doing it. So
nice, man.
cool.
No, that's good stuff, brother. Yeah, hit me up
Okay.
when your life's winding down. Go to the bank though, for sure.
Yeah,
It'll help you
yeah.
just get your goals in line. You know,
Will do.
So
I appreciate that.
cool, man. Yeah, if I don't know how this works for you. If you ever just need filler spots, you know, hit me up. You can have different types of questions or opinions on stuff, you know, and just make it a cool deal. So
That'd be fun. Okay. We'll do.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate it, Jimmy. You have a good day.
Hey, man, appreciate you too, brother. Yeah, see you, man.
We'll see ya.